A few words about the client company, about LuxTrust. So they're one of the European leaders for electronic security solutions and products, and they're actually market leader in Luxembourg. So what kind of services do they provide? Just to give you like quick understanding. So it's kind of like electronic certificates and e-signatures, e-seals, and other means to access your financial data from third-party providers securely. So they're working with major financial institutions in Luxembourg, and they're providing their security services to like end users. And they've been working quite successfully in this market for about 10 years, and they grew like portfolio of products during this period. And about 1 year or 1 year and a half ago, they started a transformation of their business. So not about processes or about their product delivery, but they've been asked by their shareholders to expand to new European markets and to increase their revenues. And that led to rapid growth of their project portfolio and of new business initiatives. There is a huge competition in markets like Belgium or France, and they're much bigger in size. And the company just needed to become more rapid in their development and learn how to prioritize their new business initiatives. And they had some struggles with that, which I will cover on next slides. About us, so probably some of you know what kind of company Luxoft is. So Luxoft's main focus is custom software development for preliminary for large enterprise companies. And within this company, we have different like streams or lines of business dedicated to specific financial line of business and automotive and digital enterprise, which is like everything else. And I work in a very specific unit of Luxoft, which is called Luxoft Digital. And what we do is we apply modern technology and modern management practices to our clients and start as kind of locomotive for a new change and help companies to adopt new practices and new technology in order to become more successful before scaling their delivery. And we have different practices inside Luxoft Digital which work with different lines of business. There are technological practices like big data and cloud and Internet of Things and so on. And there is also modern project management practice, part of which is Agile practice, which I lead. So initially, this was exactly a year ago. So we started kind of assessment or DevOps / Agile study within LuxTrust. And it went for about 4 weeks. And in scope of this study, we focused first on the way they work in the delivery stream. So how their developers and security specialists work and which practices and tools do they use. And actually, I came there for a couple of days just to provide them a quick workshop on Scrum and Kanban to showcase how we normally work with other clients and what is Scrum and what is Kanban, and probably discuss with them which practices we would use for this team extension collaboration. But it kind of like escalated quickly. Once I came there and met people, so I understood that my initial facilitation plan for this workshop could be thrown out to the trash bin, and we need something else. Because we're not ready at the moment to talk about Scrum, about cross-functional teams, about iterative delivery, and we first need to understand what are business goals of the company and how to tie them with actual management practices and how to bridge the gap between company strategy and operational processes. So in scope of this workshop, in scope of this study, I did a 2-day workshop, which initially was supposed to be as like Scrum induction training, but it turned out to be kind of like strategy workshop, where we started with assessment of how different teams within the company, not only development, but also finance, sales, client support, and others, including chief operating officer, how do they see each other and how do they map their organization on just a flip chart. So my first exercise for them was, okay, let's move on and let's try to map your organization kind of like as an island. So just draw it on a flip chart and let's share with each other, so what do you see and how do you perceive other departments on this island map. And it revealed quite a lot of important outcomes and provided common grounds for further discussion regarding necessary adjustments to organizational structure and to practices of collaboration between teams. And then we did some SWOT analysis to make sure that everyone are on the same page regarding company strategy. And then we moved on to some cases of Scrum and Agile implementation in other companies, about what kind of challenges they should expect to experience, and what kind of tools they could use and what kind of practices they could use in order to reduce this pain of transformation. And we also focused a little bit on lesson toolkit in order to provide them some understanding of how they could use tools that they already have, like Jira and Confluence and other lesson stack, in order to improve their transparency inside their organization. And as a result of this workshop, we managed to form kind of like set of organizational goals for transformation. So first of all, the biggest question for everyone was, like from the boardroom, was how could we use electronic tools which we already have, to understand where we are right now and what are forecasted delivery dates for important business initiatives, so that we don't have to go directly to developers and interview them one by one in order to understand what's going on, what is everyone is working on, and how we could make this process more streamlined and allow company board or executive committee to look at the portfolio and understand what are like delivery dates which are not pitched by a sales team, which are not kind of like wishful thinking, but which are based on actual velocity of the teams and their estimates, and which are more or less likely to happen. Next question was kind of backlog impact analysis. So as I mentioned, so company experienced rapid growth and new initiatives came out of preliminary sales team, but sometimes client support and from professional services quite often. And how we can make sure that we don't sacrifice our existing initiatives in order to start something new. And how to make sure that we understand impact analysis, like impact on existing business while starting new initiatives. And the third, like last but not the least, is how to understand team workload and make sure that everyone working on steady pace and not providing some unrealistic estimates, not based on historical velocity. So as you can see, so there are no goals like we need to work in short iterations or we need some cross-functional teams or we need rapid delivery like every 2 weeks. Definitely those goals were pitched, but they were not the primary business goals. And we always pinned our practices which we introduce into team to these business goals and to understand whether we're moving in the right direction. And after a couple of months of contract definition and understanding of who will be doing what, we finally started actual transformation effort with two teams, two parts of the team inside Luxoft, and one of them were consultants on both the management practices and Agile and Scrum and also classing tools from Luxoft digital organization. And the other was delivery management people from Excel and Luxoft Financial Services organization, which is current name of our financial line of business within the company. And the first thing we started with in July was mapping the new business initiatives workflow to some definition of dance and stages, and we started with understanding that they don't actually have established process, and most of these decisions on whether we start an initiative or not, so they're made quite rapidly, but not in a steady way, not in a consistent way. So the first exercise was to understand how the whole company would agree to work from now on, and to build, to visualize the workflow for new business initiatives. So this is, as you can see, so this is not something to do with Scrum. This is more a kind of Kanban approach. So start where you are at now and visualize the flow. And the next point was explaining step by step iterative delivery process, and introducing Scrum and explaining specific Scrum practices to people in order to for them to understand how they will be actually delivering these new business initiatives. And another point, which is also from Kanban approach, is making process practices explicit, understanding roles and responsibilities and mapping out who will be doing what. And there were quite interesting outcomes of this exercise. So definitely we mapped out what would be the Scrum Master role and what would be product owners doing for specific initiatives. But we also discovered that we're missing some specific skill sets within a team, such as, for example, a business analyst. Being a business analyst in the past myself, I'm not a big fan of dedicated business analysts within a team. Surprisingly, I'm not. And I believe that in a Scrum cross-functional team, everyone should be more or less engaged into product discovery process and understanding what we're building and how it impacts our business. However, for complicated business demands like electronic security, which I for myself don't know well, even after half a year working with LuxTrust. We definitely need some people to explain requirements and become subject matter experts for the team, kind of like business analysts. Because previously we discovered that salespeople are working directly with developers. They're pitching their ideas in different ways, so it could be a PowerPoint presentation, it could be email, it could be some conference page, or it could be a face-to-face conversation. And we don't have dedicated knowledge base within the company. And not all people in the company have the shared understanding about what products we're building and how they work and how they're interconnected. And for that, we definitely need some business analysts to help product owners document their ideas and present them to teams in a consistent way. From story writing workshops and to story mapping and to helping team discover some acceptance criteria for user stories and so on. So salespeople were definitely ready to drive this process but as it normally happens in organizations, they were not ready to dedicate like 50% of their time or more to being product owners. And basically, this is just one of the examples how we changed organizational structure and introduced additional skill sets in order to become more effective as an organization here. And moving on, so I would like to introduce the transition timeline to provide you more context about how it was organized. So as I mentioned, so we started in March with this DevOps study, and in May 17th last year, so we had a go decision for transformation, but we actually started only in July due to some contractual topics. With all of this like preparation workshops and discovery of new ways of working and introducing new practices like planning and estimation and collaboration workshops to teams. And basically, if you are following, so the initial request to us was to set up offshore team extension for development team. And it only happened in September. So the first team was launched in September after we established some common grounds. And by October, so we're in a position to extend this collaboration to 3 teams. And we're now more or less free to go with new teams in case client would like to expand the portfolio and deliver more products in parallel. And just to provide you with some quick numbers, there were some surprising development team in the organization is just 12 people. And it's software developers and security specialists and operations, and there are just 12 people in a 50 full-time employees organization. And they were working on a backlog of 95 business initiatives, which is huge. And you cannot expect people to be not even focused, but at least keeping their eyes on all of them in the parallel. And so the first exercise we did was work in process reduction. And through a number of iterations, we reduced work in process down to just 4 initiatives running in parallel. Those were some hard decisions made by executive committee, by people like CEO and CEO. And I appreciate the brevity to do that, because apparently it meant that we're not focusing on a lot of stuff right now, but we're like stopping to start and starting to stop. Yeah? So we're starting to deliver some initiatives actually versus starting something new. And currently those like 4 projects in parallel, so they're tackled by a team of 34 people divided in 4 Scrum teams. And regarding other improvements that we did in scope of this transformation, we introduced actual estimation and planning process. So I wouldn't say that company didn't have any planning process at all, but it was quite ad hoc. So you know how it happens in organizations quite often, more often than not, that someone from the stakeholders comes to a team and asks, okay guys, we have some deadline for this new business initiative. Could you please absorb this into your backlog and be able to deliver it by that time? And more often than not, team doesn't have a brevity to say no, and that would have this and that impact on all existing initiatives, and we wouldn't be able to deliver this and that in time. And they just say, well, okay, so we'll try. And you know what happens when we try, so we just fail. And here we went different way. So we started with introducing some estimation process in the first place. So no new business initiative was started until we have some preliminary estimation, at least on high level, some story mapping workshop, and high level estimate and story points regarding like how much it would take, so how much complexity it is based on other stories which are already in team backlog. And having all these numbers on hand, program manager was able to do some quick math and understand that, okay, here is team velocity, here is our estimates, and here is like forecast for delivery dates for existing initiatives, so that new initiative would have this and that impact on existing delivery if we prioritize it on top. And that meant effectively that we need joint product backlog refinement meetings, and we need to gather a cross-functional team for each project, and we cannot work as like resource model with like matrix structure anymore, and we need some dedicated cross-functional feature teams. So we didn't build them because Scrum Guide tell us to do so, but we built because, well, we weren't able to work in any other way possible. And the other point was unification of requirements management flow and introducing the concept of user story, of story mapping, of acceptance criteria, making sure that all new requirements, all new business initiatives are discovered in this way, so that we understand the mapping between business goals of this engagement, of this initiative, and actual deliverables. And in some cases, it led to like dropping majority of functionality or moving it into next phases and focusing just on minimum viable product to be delivered as soon as possible in a matter of sprints. And another point was education and consulting on classing tools. Because when we started this engagement, Jira was mostly used in the company as bug tracker, which is so 2008, I guess. And our goal was to transform Jira from just a simple bug tracker or even task tracker into a powerful tool containing all the backlogs for every team and providing overarching project portfolio view on what's being done by the teams and what are forecasted delivery dates for each of the projects. And the last but not the least that I would like to focus on is introduction of architecture forum, which is basically a collaboration workshop happening every week between all the delivery team members and dedicated to discussion of the tools and development practices that are used throughout the company to avoid reinventing the wheel and to avoid situation when someone decided, for example, to use Docker on their project because it's some new cool tech and it would look great on their resume. And when this person leaves the company, you know what happens. So nobody is able to support the project anymore because there is no knowledge sharing, no documentation. And the purpose of Architecture Forum was exactly like that, to make sure that we're taking informed decisions as a team about which technology we would use, which tools, both on infrastructure and on development we would use, and to have common agreements and knowledge transfer about how to support these solutions. And it actually worked great and helped to improve collaboration between developers and spark some very important side discussions. Well, I guess it's time to move to transformation results. And I would say that transformation is still going, so there is no such thing as like end point of transformation probably. But we've been able to come to some important results so far. And if you remember the business goals which were communicated in the beginning, they started with need to have a common project portfolio overview for company board. So currently they use a Jira Big Picture plugin, and it helps them to understand what's going on like project level without going to every team and participating in planning sessions to understand what are their forecasts regarding important delivery milestones. And the next point, so it wouldn't be possible without having properly defined product backlogs. And as far as I remember from the first session when Talg asked regarding your experience in Scrum, so everyone here is using Scrum practices, so you probably know this acronym DEEP for backlog, which is detailed, estimated, emerging, and prioritized. And I believe that our major achievement was in moving from a situation where most of these backlogs are kind of like tacit knowledge within stakeholders' minds to a situation where we do have prioritized and estimated and detailed enough backlogs in Jira for every team, which could be reviewed, which could be used during sprint planning, and which provides a sense of safety for development teams, meaning that they understand future priorities, they understand what they will be doing the next sprint, and even though there are some inevitable changes in product backlog priorities, so they're more or less safe in understanding that these changes are controllable. And due to that point, we're able to scale the delivery from just 12 people on site to 12 people on site plus 12 people offshore initially. And now we have 22 people in the Luxoft program working as an extension of this delivery staff at LuxTrust. And overall, we have 34 full-time employees working as 4 Scrum teams and having sustainable 2-week iterative product delivery. And the last point that I would like to mention in my presentation is lessons learned. And probably there will be no surprises for most of you here. However, I believe it's worth bottom lining. So key challenges that we had in the beginning of this process and during the transformation process were weak prioritization process, no culture of commitments, again, because of the lack of transparency about stakeholders' expectations, lack of collaboration between functional departments like sales and client support and professional services and basically development team. And lots of tacit knowledge, which is basically a common sense understanding which most of people believe it's shared across the organization, but normally it's not. And I did quite a lot of agile transformations myself. I participated in even more, and unfortunately some of them were not as successful as I would like, and some of them were actual failures. And this transformation definitely could be considered as a success because we covered all the transformation goals from a business perspective, and that should be attributed not only to our hard work as consultants, but in the first place to strong executive support from the beginning. Because this initiative wasn't started just from the bottom that we would like to use Scrum in the development team, but it was supported by COO and CEO of the organization. they were quite brave to start with thorough initial assessment of this DevOps and Agile study. And we were lucky to have this gap between start of the transformation activities, start of the consulting, and start of the actual team scaling. So that's normally, it happens in different way. So the organization scales uncontrollably, and then somewhere in the middle of it, someone understands that there were like a lot of poorly made decisions, and now they need some consultants or crisis managers to solve this out. But this time, so it was held differently, and we had this time to prepare organizational context and agree to limit working process, introduce new roles, and also not the least is a great technical expertise of LuxTrust development team, which meant that we just have to focus on organizational process, but not on the like introducing best development practices. Well, that's it from my side, and I believe we have a couple of minutes left for questions and answers. So I would be happy to explain something if it's not covered so far.
Дуже дякую. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Have you ever encountered any alternatives for the big picture to manage the portfolio? And if so, what are the alternatives?
That's a brilliant question, and actually we did. So we also piloted your portfolio as a separate tool, but we discovered that in this particular situation, so we have exactly the same view that client stakeholders would expect to have with the big picture. So portfolio was not so, I would say, beautiful from UX perspective. But yeah, we had that. Any other questions?
Are you happy with big picture?
Well, I believe that big picture has its own limitations, but at the moment, so yeah, we're more or less happy with it, and it provides the level of detail that executive committee needs, and it provides it without any specific manual work on each iteration. So yeah, we're more or less happy with it. Any other questions? Okay, I believe I would be somewhere over there at expert stage and in like unconference space. So if you have any more specific questions, so feel free to come and ask me about them, and I will be here all day long. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much.